Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be looking at standard 6.G.A.4, represent three-dimensional figures using nets made up of rectangles and triangles, and use the nets to find the surface area of these figures. Apply these techniques in the context of solving real-world and mathematical problems. A net is a pattern obtained when a three-dimensional figure is laid out flat, showing each face of the figure. Surface area is the total area of all surfaces on a three-dimensional shape. We use surface area to calculate wrapping paper or how much paint is needed to cover a three-dimensional shape. So for this lesson, we're going to focus on calculating the surface area of our pyramids. We're going to do our square pyramids, which are also just referred to as our regular pyramids, and our triangular pyramids, where the base is a triangle. So for our first example, we have the pyramid shown here in its three-dimensional form, and then we also have the net. So this here is the base of our triangle, and then we have the three sides, which will close it up to make it into that pyramid. Now, when I look over here, I can see that the base of my pyramid, the dimensions are 2 and 1.7. So the internal height here is 1.7 and the base is 2. Now, this base is shared with this triangle over here. This side is shared with this one, and this one is shared with this. So we know that all of those sides will be equivalent. As shown in our image here, we can see that the sides of our triangle is represented with the number 2. So this here would be a 2, this would be a 2, this would be 2, and so is that bottom portion. The height, however, for the sides of my pyramid is represented with the number 2. So here, these triangles have a height of 2. So now let's go ahead and calculate the area of each of these shapes and then add those all up for our surface area. Okay, so here are the three triangles that made up the side of our pyramid and the one triangle that was on the base. I've gone ahead and write in those dimensions as we discussed earlier. So the formula for calculating the area of a triangle is either a half base times height or base times height divided by 2. So let's go ahead and plug that in. So we have here 2 times 2, and that's being divided by 2. Now, one shortcut is that we could do 2 times 2 is 4 and then divide it by 2. But then we know that these can also cancel out, which means that the area is going to be 2 feet squared for each of our triangles. Okay. Now there are a total of 3. So we're going to take that number and multiply it by 3 for a total of 6 feet squared. Now let's take a look at our base. So we have here 2 times 1.7, and that's being divided by 2. Similar to the previous calculation, I can cancel out those 2. It's the same thing if I multiplied first and then divided. And that would give me 1.7 feet squared. So now we can go ahead and add these all up. So we have 6 plus 1.7 for a total of 7.7 feet squared. All right, let's take a look at another example. So we're going to do base, that's the base of the shape, and sides. And for the sides, we know it's going to be times 3. So what I have here, my formula, A equals base times height divided by 2. And that's going to be the same for both of these. Now, when I look at the base of my shape, I see one dimension here and I see another there. So here I'm working with 3 and 2.6 as my height, and that's being divided by 2. So 3 times 2.6 is equal to 7.8. We divide that by 2, and that gives us 3.9 yards squared. And now for the sides, we see that the base here is 3 and the height is also 3. So let's substitute that in. 3 times 3 is 9 divided by 2. That gives us 4.5 yard squared. Now we made a note to multiply that by 3, so we're going to do 4.5 times 3, and that is equal to 13.5 yard squared. So now let's go ahead and add these all up for our total surface area. So we have our base at 3.9, and we have our sides 13.5 for a total surface area of 17.4 yards squared. Now let's take a look at our rectangular pyramid. So here we see that the base is represented using 17 and 17. So we know that this here would be 17 and so would be this. And then we see that the height of our triangle is 17. So let's go ahead and write that in. Okay, so here is 17. Here is 17. That means the base of the triangle would also be 17 because all of those sides are shared. And then the height here is also 17. All right, so let's go ahead and use the formula. So I've already gone ahead and fill in. So we have 4 equivalent triangles and we have a square. So area equals length times width is what we'll use there. And area equals base times height divided by 2 is what we will use here. So we're working with 17 times 17 divided by 2. And we're working with 17 times 17. 17 times 17 is equal to 289 centimeters squared. And for our triangle, we're doing the same thing. So we have 17 times 17, which is 289. And that's being divided by 2, which is equal to 144.5. Now we know there are 4 of these. So to calculate my surface area, I can rewrite it over here. So I'm going to multiply the 144.5 times 4 to represent all of the triangles plus 289, which is the area of our square. So 144.5 times 4 is 578 plus 289 is equal to 867. And we cannot forget our units, so that final answer is 867 centimeters squared. And that will be the surface area for this rectangular pyramid. Okay, so let's take a look at our next example. So here we see that we have a rectangular base, triangles are on the side. Unlike the previous one, our height is a different number here, and that's okay. So let's go ahead and write our formula. So area equals length times width, and we're working with 7 times 7 as the dimensions for our base, which is equal to 49 yards squared. Now we know the sides of our pyramid. There are 4 of them, so whatever the area is, we're going to have to multiply that by 4. So I'm just going to make a mental note there. And then I have area equals base times height divided by 2. So here our base is 7 and the height is 8. Seven times 8 is 56. Divided by 2 is 28 yards squared. Okay, so our surface area will be equal to 28 times 4 plus 49. So if I do 4 times 28 over here, that's going to give me 112. So I have 112 plus 49, which is equal to 161 yards squared. So the surface area is equal to 161 yards squared. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.